You're not poor because you don't make enough money. You're poor because you don't know why you spend it. Let me paint a picture that might feel uncomfortably familiar. It's payday. The direct deposit hits your account, and for a moment, just a moment, you feel rich. You pay your bills, maybe put a little aside, and then something happens. The money starts disappearing. A coffee here, a subscription there, that thing you saw online, the upgrade you convinced yourself you needed. By the end of the month, you're wondering where it all went, living paycheck to paycheck despite earning more than your parents ever dreamed of. This isn't a budgeting problem. This isn't about financial literacy or mathematical incompetence. This is about addiction, a psychological trap so sophisticated, so deeply embedded in modern life, that most people don't even realize they're caught in it. Tonight, we're going to expose the hidden science of spending addiction, the neurological patterns, the emotional triggers, the cultural programming that keeps you broke, and more importantly, how to escape it. Because here's what nobody wants to admit. Most people get more excited about spending money than making it. Think about it. When was the last time you felt genuine excitement about your paycheck hitting your account? Now think about the last time you felt that surge of anticipation clicking, add to cart, or walking into a store with something specific in mind. The spending gives you a high. The earning feels like work. This is the illusion of wealth, the momentary sensation of abundance that comes not from having money, but from spending it. It's the most expensive magic trick ever performed, and you're both the magician and the audience, fooling yourself into feeling rich while systematically making yourself poor. What's happening in your brain during that moment of purchase is identical to what happens in the brain of someone pulling the lever on a slot machine. Dopamine floods your system. The anticipation, the acquisition, the brief moment of satisfaction, it's a neurochemical reward loop that has nothing to do with the actual value of what you're buying and everything to do with the act of buying itself. Credit cards are dopamine slot machines. Buy now, pay later services are dopamine slot machines. One-click purchasing, same-day delivery. Subscription services that auto-renew, they're all engineered to maximize the neurochemical reward while minimizing the psychological friction. The easier it is to spend, the more addictive it becomes. The further removed you are from the actual exchange of money, the more abstract the cost becomes until spending stops feeling like spending at all. And this isn't accidental. This is the modern trap, a system designed with surgical precision to keep you consuming. The entire economy has reorganized itself around consumption psychology. Every aspect of digital capitalism is engineered to remove barriers between you and spending. Everything is optimized to capture and monetize your impulses before your rational mind can intervene. Consider the sophistication of modern advertising. It's not trying to sell you products anymore, it's trying to sell you emotions. Algorithms study your browsing history, your social media activity, your purchasing patterns, even the times of day you're most vulnerable to making impulse decisions. Then they serve you perfectly calibrated temptations when your psychological defenses are lowest. Feeling stressed after work. Here's an ad for something that promises relaxation. Feeling insecure about your appearance. Here's something that promises transformation. Feeling left behind. Here's something that promises status. The ads aren't just targeting your wants, they're targeting your wounds. They're designed to activate specific emotional states and then offer a purchase as the solution. If you're not conscious of your habits, someone else is monetizing your autopilot. One-click shopping didn't just make purchasing more convenient, it made it more compulsive. When Amazon introduced one-click buying, they weren't just reducing steps in a process, they were removing opportunities for second thoughts. They were eliminating the natural pause that might allow your rational mind to ask, do I actually need this? The faster the transaction, the less time for reflection. The less time for reflection, the more likely the purchase. But the trap goes deeper than technology. It goes to the core of how we've learned to relate to our emotions. For most people, Spending has become emotional escape, a way to avoid feeling whatever they don't want to feel. Bored, buy something. Anxious, buy something. Depressed, buy something. Celebrating, buy something. The purchasing acts as a temporary anesthetic, a brief distraction from whatever internal state feels uncomfortable. This pattern often traces back to childhood conditioning. Many people learn to associate spending with reward, with love, with specialness. Maybe your parents showed affection through gifts. Maybe treats were used to comfort you when you were upset. Maybe shopping trips were presented as quality time, as bonding experiences. These early associations don't disappear. When you become an adult, they get transferred to your adult relationship with money. Here's the brutal truth most people never confront: you're not buying things. You're buying feelings. You're not purchasing products. You're purchasing temporary relief from internal states you haven't learned to manage any other way. You're not buying the thing, you're buying the feeling of control, status, novelty, or relief that you believe the thing will provide. But feelings can't be purchased. They can only be temporarily suppressed or distracted from. The sweater doesn't actually make you more attractive. The gadget doesn't actually make you more productive. The expensive meal doesn't actually make you more sophisticated. These are fantasies we buy into, literally, because facing the underlying emotions directly feels more difficult than swiping a card. And every time you use spending to avoid feeling something, you strengthen that neural pathway. You train your brain to see purchasing as the solution to internal discomfort. Over time, this becomes so automatic that you don't even realize you're doing it. You just find yourself buying things and wondering why. This is how spending rewires the brain. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new neural connections, works both for you and against you. Every repeated behavior literally changes the structure of your brain. When you consistently use spending as an emotional coping mechanism, you're building neural pathways that make spending feel like the natural response to any kind of internal tension. Constant spending trains the brain to chase short-term highs at the expense of long-term thinking. Saving money and investing start to feel boring, even painful, because your brain has been conditioned to expect immediate gratification. The delayed rewards of building wealth can't compete with the instant reward of buying something new. Your brain becomes like a slot machine addict craving the next win, unable to tolerate the stillness between purchases. The neuroscience is clear: behaviors that provide immediate rewards literally hijack the brain's priority system. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for long-term planning and rational decision-making, gets overruled by the limbic system, which is only concerned with immediate pleasure and pain avoidance. The more you strengthen the immediate gratification pathways, the weaker your capacity for delayed gratification becomes. This is why people who are objectively intelligent can make completely irrational financial decisions. It's not about intelligence. It's about which part of the brain is driving the decision. When the emotional brain is in control, the rational brain becomes a passenger, trying to justify decisions that were made for entirely different reasons. But there's another layer to this addiction that's even more insidious: social pressure and identity addiction. We live in a culture where your worth is measured by what you own, where your identity is expressed through your consumption choices. We spend money we don't have to impress people we don't even like, and we do it automatically, without questioning why their opinion matters or whether the things we're buying actually reflect who we want to be. Designer clothes, luxury cars, the latest technology, these aren't purchased for their utility. They're purchased for their signaling value, for what they communicate to others about your status, your taste, your success. But here's the paradox: the people you're trying to impress are usually too busy trying to impress other people to pay attention to what you own. You're performing for an audience that isn't watching, spending money you don't have on a show nobody cares about. Social media has multiplied this pressure exponentially. You're no longer just keeping up with your neighbors. You're trying to keep up with influencers, celebrities, and carefully curated highlight reels of people you've never met. Every scroll through Instagram or TikTok is a comparison session, and every comparison can trigger the impulse to buy something that will make you feel like you measure up. The algorithm knows this. It feeds you images of lifestyles you can't afford, then immediately serves you ads for cheaper versions of the luxury items you just saw. It's a perfectly designed system to make you feel inadequate and then offer you a purchase as the solution to that inadequacy. The platform profits from your insecurity, your desire to belong, your fear of being left behind. But identity addiction through consumption is ultimately a losing game because it's based on a fundamental misunderstanding of how identity actually works. Your identity isn't what you own, it's what you do. How you think, how you treat others, what you create, what you stand for. When you try to buy your identity, you're outsourcing your sense of self to companies whose only interest is getting you to buy more. Breaking this cycle starts with awareness, but not the kind of surface-level awareness that most financial advice offers. It starts with understanding the habit loop that drives compulsive spending: trigger, behavior, reward. Something happens, you feel stressed, bored, inadequate, excited, and that feeling triggers the behavior of shopping or buying. The behavior provides a temporary reward, the dopamine hit, the momentary feeling of progress or control, which reinforces the whole loop. The key to breaking any addiction is disrupting this loop, and the most effective point of intervention is at the trigger. This is why I want you to track every non-essential purchase for 7 days. Not to judge yourself, not to feel guilty, but to become conscious of the patterns you're currently running on autopilot. Before every purchase, practice what I call the pause and feel method. Stop. Take a breath. Ask yourself, what emotion am I trying to feed right now? Am I buying this because I'm bored, anxious, trying to avoid something, trying to prove something, trying to feel something? There's no wrong answer, but there needs to be an honest answer. Then ask, would I still want this if no one ever saw me with it? This question cuts through the social signaling aspect of most purchases. If the only person who would know you owned something was you, would it still feel worth buying? If not, you're probably buying status or approval, not the thing itself. The goal isn't to never spend money. The goal is to spend consciously instead of compulsively. It's to replace dopamine spending with dopamine saving. Your brain needs rewards, but you can train it to get excited about different kinds of rewards. Track your progress visually. Set emotional rewards tied to reaching savings goals. Celebrate the money. You don't spend as much as you celebrate the money you make. Some people gamify their savings the same way that spending apps gamify their purchases. They create visual progress bars, set achievement levels, even give themselves non-monetary rewards when they hit certain targets. The key is to make the abstract concept of future wealth as emotionally engaging as the immediate gratification of current spending. This leads us to what I call financial sobriety, not the complete absence of spending, but conscious choice-making around money. Financial sobriety means recognizing that every dollar you spend is a vote for the kind of life you want to live, and most people are voting for lives they don't actually want. Before any significant purchase, practice the 3-question rule. 1, do I need this right now? Not eventually, not someday, but right now. 2, will this matter in 6 months? Most purchases that feel urgent in the moment are completely forgotten within weeks. 3, am I reacting or choosing? Am I buying this because of an emotional reaction to something, an ad, a social media post, a conversation, a feeling, or am I making a conscious choice aligned with my actual values and goals? Wealthy people have mastered something that broke people haven't. They don't fear missing out on purchases, they fear going broke internally. They understand that every dollar spent on something unnecessary is a dollar not invested in their freedom, their options, their ability to make choices based on what they want rather than what they can afford. Wealth is not in your account. It's in your decisions. It's in your ability to delay gratification, to distinguish between wants and needs. to resist social pressure, to manage your emotions without medicating them through consumption. These are skills, and like all skills, they can be developed with practice. The people who build real wealth aren't usually the ones with the highest incomes. They're the ones with the highest consciousness around money. They've trained themselves to think in terms of opportunity cost. Every purchase is weighed not just against the money it costs, but against the alternative uses for that money. They ask not just, can I afford this? But, what am I not buying by buying this? This shift in thinking changes everything. When you start seeing money as a finite resource that represents your life energy, the hours of your life you traded to earn it, you become much more selective about how you spend it. When you realize that every unnecessary purchase is a vote for working longer, having fewer options, being more dependent on others, the calculus changes. But here's what might surprise you: financial sobriety doesn't make life less enjoyable, it makes it more enjoyable. When you stop using spending as an emotional coping mechanism, you're forced to develop healthier ways of managing your internal state. When you stop trying to buy status, you're forced to develop actual skills and relationships. When you stop medicating boredom through shopping, you're forced to find more meaningful ways to spend your time. The freedom that comes from breaking the spending addiction is unlike anything you can purchase. It's the freedom to take risks because you're not buried in debt. It's the freedom to say no to work you don't believe in because you're not trapped by financial obligations. It's the freedom to be generous because you're not constantly worried about your own financial security. It's the freedom to be yourself because you're not trying to buy an identity. Let me be clear about what we're really talking about here. This isn't about income, it's about behavior. You're not poor because you don't make enough money. You're miswired. You're running programs that were installed by a culture that profits from your compulsive consumption. You don't need a raise. You need a rewiring. The difference between people who build wealth and people who stay broke isn't usually about how much they earn, it's about how they think. It's about whether they see money as something to spend or something to steward. It's about whether they use purchasing to avoid emotions or whether they've learned to feel their emotions directly. It's about whether they buy things to impress others or whether they're secure enough in themselves to live below their means. Here's your challenge for the next 30 days. Track every impulse purchase. Not to stop yourself from buying things, but to become aware of the triggers. Notice what emotions precede the desire to spend. Notice what time of day you're most vulnerable. Notice what kind of marketing messages hook you. Notice how you feel immediately after buying something versus how you feel a week later. Most people have never done this kind of conscious observation of their spending patterns. They go through life on financial autopilot, wondering why they can't get ahead, while never examining the unconscious behaviors that keep them stuck. But awareness is the beginning of choice, and choice is the beginning of freedom. When you stop trying to buy your emotions, when you stop using spending as a substitute for living, when you master the art of conscious choice-making around money, everything changes. You stop being controlled by your impulses and start controlling them. You stop being manipulated by marketing and start making decisions based on your actual values. You stop working to fund a lifestyle that doesn't actually make you happy and start building a life that does. Master your spending, and you'll master your life. Because money is never really about money, it's about freedom, options, security, the ability to be generous, the capacity to take risks, the power to make choices based on what you believe rather than what you can afford. The patterns that keep you broke are not permanent. They're just patterns. And patterns can be changed. But first, they have to be seen. They have to be acknowledged. They have to be understood for what they really are: not character, flaws, or moral failings, but unconscious programs running in the background of your life. You have the power to rewrite those programs. You have the ability to change your relationship with money, with consumption, with the emotions that drive your financial decisions. But it starts with recognizing that you're not poor, you're addicted to spending. And like any addiction, recovery begins with admitting you have a problem. The question is, are you ready to get sober?